If a big UFO came now, we walk outside and over Westminster, there's a spaceship hovering. I wouldn't be in the least bit surprised. I mean, there are deep questions. Are we alone in the universe? I mean, probably not. You'd guess there are 2 trillion galaxies in the observable universe, right? So you would expect not.
What have you made of all the recent headlines about, someone in the States saying he's seen evidence of alien life forms on Earth, something that was collected from the bottom of the sea, those tiny ball bearings, and they say, this has been formed by a life form outside our galaxy.
It's a theory, that, isn't it? I mean, so there's a theory there. And so you can get the little things and we will analyse them and have a look. I mean, I wouldn't, it's funny because you mentioned social media, I think. Occasionally on social media, I'll quite often, I'll tweet something and there'll be quite a few people who disagree reasonably strongly with what I said. And one of them is the UFO thing, there are people who really believe that there are UFOs visiting the Earth. And I always say that, I haven't seen any evidence of that I think is strong evidence. Yeah. It's a huge claim that there are other civilizations out there that are visiting us. But I wouldn't be surprised, in a strict sense, that if I said to someone the other day, if a big UFO came now, we walk outside and over Westminster, there's a spaceship hovering. I wouldn't be in the least bit surprised because I know that there are trillions of planets in the Milky Way galaxy alone and hundreds of billions of stars, and there's been a lot of time. And one of the great mysteries actually in physics is why we don't seem to see much out there, anything. We haven't, there's strong evidence of nothing out there at all at the moment. We have no strong evidence of any life beyond Earth. And that's a puzzle and a paradox. So it's about, with those claims, you don't rule them out. If someone says, well, I found this thing at the bottom of the sea and I think it's really weird, then the correct thing to do is go, okay, we'll put it in a lab and get an electron microscope and prod it around and find out just how weird it is. And Feynman again said, the thing to remember is nature does not care at all what you think. Nature just doesn't. It doesn't matter who you are or how famous you are, how many letters you've got before or after your name, whatever. It doesn't matter. Nature just is. So if indeed an alien spacecraft crashed into wherever it was that they found these things 1 billion years ago and left all the fragments there and we've dug them up, then that's interesting, isn't it? but that's it.
Oh, very.
That's, but if it didn't, then that's also interesting because then we get a profound puzzle about why there don't seem to be many civilizations around. If we don't find a way of not compromising, but understanding that the world is very complicated, so then it's not only a single country, it's all the different countries with different cultures and different political histories and different views. If we don't find a way of sort of stopping arguing and trying to find the way to make that work, I've just given everyone the means to destroy themselves. So I personally have delivered the atom bomb, which is now has kind of raised the stakes on these arguments. This is the 50s. It's the middle of the
now we're
start of the Cold War.
About AI being the kind of modern version of that atom bomb. Every time I open a newspaper or read something on the internet, it's like AI is going to end civilization, isn't it? We're having the same conversation again all these years later.
Yeah. So there will be. I mean, whether that's the threat or, there's obviously... There are threats from all over the place. I still think the threat is probably human stupidity. I think it's what we've just been talking about. Well, just that the possibility that someone will just press the button still. We grew up with that. So it's interesting, actually. If you grew up in the 70s and 80s, you grew up with the world's going to get destroyed by nuclear bombs. They're all there. They're still there. And you still have the same kinds of problems and obviously international tensions. And so I think, for all the existential threats we talk about, and we've talked about, I remember, just as an aside, I remember on my radio show, The Infinite Monkey Cage, just before the pandemic, we did a show on pandemics. Right. And it was before the pandemic. And one of the experts said, right at the end, he said, I tell you, it's the bats are going to get us. It's the bats. And there's something going to come out of bats. I bet you that's what it is. And, I mean, even that is controversial. There's all sorts of theories about what happened with that virus. But ultimately, his point was that pandemics are really a big threat. Yeah. And of course, we'd basically ignored it. And thought, that's funny, isn't it? Yeah, pandemic. And then about 3 months later, there's a pandemic. But of all those threats, I still think that the big problem at the moment is how to get along as a global society in a world where we have the means to destroy ourselves. So it's not just a fight in a pub. It's exchanging nuclear weapons if we're not careful.
Where are you regarding our future? Are you optimistic?
Yes. We seem to have avoided we've avoided destroying ourselves so far. So I think, I'm worried about it because I'm worried that it seems to me that political debate has become extremely polarized in a way that really matters, particularly in the United States, actually, where it's very important that country stays stable. And so I'm worried about that. And you see it here to an extent. And so although actually we seem to be handling it quite well in this country. I mean, we don't usually give credit to our political system, but it seems to be dealing with quite an upheaval, particularly starting with the Brexit referendum and those things. It seems to be dealing with it. So I'm worried. And one of the reasons I'm worried, actually, I was asked to give a talk at the COP Climate Summit in Glasgow, just by video, 1 minute. And it was a little project. And they said, if you could say anything to the world leaders there, what would you say? And I said, just very simply, that given what I know, and given to a lot of people I've spoken to, it's possible that we're the only civilization in the Milky Way galaxy at the moment. Right? It's worth considering that might be the case. And there are reasons we can go into about why that may be the case, but it's possible. So if it's true, imagine it's true, I think that if we're talking about the meaning of it all, as we talked about earlier, what does it mean to be a human in this universe? Well, meaning is a property of intelligence, I think. So clearly the universe means something to us. So meaning exists here. But if there's no other intelligence out there in our galaxy and we destroy ourselves, then we might eliminate meaning in a galaxy of 400 billion stars forever. That's what we might do. So consider that, world leaders. You have potentially a galactic-size responsibility to maintain meaning in a galaxy. And so that's why it bothers me, because I think that's true. So I think what we do here will have ramifications in that sense, way beyond the shores of our own planet. Because you look at, to me, a lifeless world, a lifeless galaxy, is a meaningless galaxy.
Totally right.
Really powerful. There's something really powerful on that. Like we were lucky enough to interview Tim Peake, who spoke about the overview effect of that. A lot of astronauts talk about being able to see the world from outside the atmosphere. Gives you a sense of both how small we are, but also how magnificent life here is. On the planet.
You see it with as I said, I've been lucky to meet a lot of astronauts, Apollo astronauts as well, who tended to be test pilots. So they tended to be in those guys from the 60s and 70s, and they tended to be guys at the time. The Apollo astronauts were really focused on flying those things as aircraft. But yet, you're right, all of them, every single one that I've been lucky enough to meet said the same thing. The moment you're off the Earth and look at it against the blackness of space, you start to get a feeling that there's something really important here, way beyond everything else. So I think that's powerful. That's why I did say once that I thought it was when I don't know which prime minister. I think it was Boris Johnson. I said I think he should be sent into space, and I actually meant I meant he should bring him back as well. But I think I would, as a taxpayer, I would pay. I would gladly, a bit of my taxes went to, as soon as you became prime minister, you went up on one of those, even the little suborbital hop, go up and have a look. And I think it would be a very good use of money, and then come back. And it'd be, you could get a ticket for, it could be $1 million. It'd be a brilliant use of a million quid. It'd be fantastic, because they come back with that in their mind. It's not going to fly. That's not going to be a very popular suggestion, that we pay a prime minister to go on a jolly into space. But I think they should.
Perspective for the world leaders would do us no harm at all.